Hello everyone. I'd like to welcome you all to the next video in which we have. Today we're going to talk about the thesis statement. Now the thesis statement is the foundation, if you will, of the paper. It's the main point. It helps us to focus specifically on what we're going to talk about, and it also helps us to guide the paper. Now, the thesis statement, it can be tricky because it has to be short enough to be concise and to make the point, but it also has to be extensive enough and specific enough to detail exactly what you're going to talk about. It's also difficult because no matter the page length of the essay, whether it be 1 page or whether it be 70 pages, your thesis statement should only still be about 1 to 2 sentences. Now, the textbook in which we have, the handbook by Diane Hacker, actually gives us some very, very good information. I encourage you to look at the handbook for further information. It's in the C14 to C16 section of the handbook. But just in case you don't have the handbook in front of you, this is a good way for us just to kind of delve into this and see exactly what we need to do to help us with the thesis statement. So we're going to talk about a couple of different types of thesis statements and which one is going to fit the paper in which you are writing specifically. So let's talk a little bit more about the thesis statement. Now, what is it? Well, a thesis statement is broken into 3 different types of thesis statement. So you have for the analytical paper. And for the analytical paper, it breaks down an issue or an idea, components of parts, evaluates the issue or idea, and presents this breakdown and evaluation to an audience. An expository type paper explains something to the audience, and an argumentative paper makes a claim about a topic and justifies this claim with specific evidence. The claim could be an opinion, a policy proposal, an evaluation, a cause and effect statement, or an interpretation. The goal of the argumentative paper is to convince the audience that the claim is true based on the evidence provided. So, your essay will fall among the second and third type of paper, which is the expository and the argumentative paper. Now, the reason as to why is because you are explaining to the audience something that they need to know, but you are also proposing some type of policy and evaluation, and then you're giving information to back it. So, once we understand what type of paper we're talking about, we need to understand why we have a thesis. Well, the purpose of a thesis is that it clarifies for the reader exactly what you're going to be talking about and how you plan to prove it. So if you look at that definition, you have 2 different components. You have your claim, which is your reason, your idea, and then you have your support, right? Your claim and then your reason. So you have exactly what you're going to talk about and the ways in which you prove it. I like to also refer to as the how and why, or the what and why. What exactly are you presenting to the audience, and why it is valid, and what points you are going to bring out to highlight that. So let's look at some examples of some thesis. So let's look at an analytical thesis statement and understand exactly how it fits into what will be written for your paper. Now remember, you're not doing an analytical paper, but just the different types of thesis and the examples should help you to get some clarifying points. So let's look at the first one. An example of an analytical thesis statement. An analysis of college admission process reveals one challenge facing counselors: accepting students with high test scores or students with strong extracurricular backgrounds. Now this is a good example of a thesis. Why? Because as you notice, it's very specific, but it's detailed enough for you to understand exactly what the paper is going to talk about. And you notice it falls in the 1 to 2 sentence parameter. Now oftentimes it seems like it's difficult to do that when a paper is lengthy, but you see here it actually can be done. Now let's analyze this a little bit further. What is our claim and what is our reason? So the claim is that the admission process reveals one challenging facing our counselors, and it's accepting students with high test scores or with strong extracurricular backgrounds. So it presents the problem with the claim, and it gives us the reasons as to what challenges they are facing. So if we look at a thesis like this, what type of paper we'll be looking at or addressing? Well, the type of paper that should follow should explain the analysis of the college admission process, which you see with the first sentence, or the first part of the sentence, excuse me, and then explain the challenge facing admission council, excuse me, and then the claim that students should pursue community projects before entering college. So, we see our claim, and then we see our reasons to back up exactly what's being said. Second example is an expository, an explanatory thesis statement, which will be more aligned in the type of paper that you'll be writing. Now, notice this thesis statement. It says, the life of the typical college student is characterized by time spent studying, attending class, and socializing with peers. So again, you have the claim of the type of typical student, what is characterized, and then it talks about what is being backed up: studying, attending class, and socializing with peers. So if you imagine this person writing this paper, you would imagine that they would address these points: time spent studying, attending class, and socializing with peers, to back up the claim of what the typical college student does. So if we were reading a paper based on this, we would expect that paper to be about how students spend their time studying, attending class, and socializing with peers. Finally, an example of an argumentative thesis would really falls into the line of what you are writing. Although it's research based, you are putting some type of argumentation in there, but it's more so about research and what you're backing. High school students should be required to take a year off to pursue community service projects before entering college in order to increase their maturity and global awareness. Now, this is a clear-cut argument because you can tell that this writer is going to back up some points. So we have our claim that high school students should be required to take a year off to pursue community service projects. But why? What is the focal point? It's to increase their maturity and global awareness. Now, if we were reading a paper about this, what do we think this paper would be about? Well, again, it presents an argument and gives evidence to support the claim that students should pursue community projects before entering college. So, what you notice about all three of these thesis statements is this. One, there's a claim or reason or an idea that the paper is backed around, and then you have your reasons, your ideas, which are going to support that. Now, you want to keep that in mind when you are constructing this thesis statement, because as stated before, it'll be the driving force of your paper. What you claim you are going to talk about is just as important as the reasons that you're going to present. So what I suggest for all students, especially during your first draft, is to have something what we like to call a working thesis. Now, what does that mean? Well, exactly just that. Any verb using the ing just means that it's continuous. So don't be alarmed if your thesis statement is not as solid as you would like to be initially, or if it sounds jumbled, convoluted, whatever the case is. It is your working thesis. Oftentimes what writers do is that they create a thesis or an idea what they choose to propose, but as the paper continues, they may either make adjustments, or once the paper is written, they compare their paper to what was actually written in a thesis statement, and they adjust their thesis statement according to what the paper is. To each his own. There's no right or wrong way to do this, but just understand that your thesis statement should be as clear and concise as it possibly can be. So again, just to reiterate, again, most of this information is found in your handbook. Your thesis statement should be 1 to 2 sentences in length, preferably 1. It should have a claim or an idea in which you're presenting to the audience, and it should have some reasons to back up what you're saying. And we saw 3 good examples of 3 different types of papers in which you can use. Now, you can take those ideas and try to construct it amongst your own. Think of your idea, think of your topic, but not just your topic. Think about what you want people to understand about this topic. What points are most important to you? What is the focal point, and how is it going to affect people? And that all should be reflected in your thesis statement. And also remember, use the term working thesis. Your thesis should not be finalized until the final draft of the paper. So when you are editing and revising the paper, do not forget to go back to the thesis. because the further away we get from the paper, the further away we get from the thesis, sometimes our ideas tend to change and it may be as not clear, it might not be as clear as we thought it would be. So remember, always go back. A nice little tip, something that I used to do when I was writing papers, is that in the header, I used to write my thesis statement. So every page that I was going to, I would see what my thesis was, because I knew that at times I had a tendency to either ramble on about one particular topic or go off on tangents. And if I saw right in front of me that that thesis statement was constantly there, then I knew exactly what I was talking about, and to make sure that whatever points I was making in the final in the paper was backing it. So that will conclude this video. I hope it was helpful. Again, this PowerPoint is actually provided in the handout section, so you can take a little bit of closer look at it to see more different examples of thesis and other things in which we'll be working on in this class. And also, please remember to refer to your handbook. It is a fantastic tool, a writer's reference, so please make sure that you are referring to this. And remember, you can find much information about the thesis statement on the C tab of this. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me via phone or email. Take care.